Now for something very interesting.
Drinks Merlot, so that
Ever since I seen the movie.
See, yes, we've converted another Merlot fan.
No, I didn't say that.
But you enjoyed this one.
Very
All right, something interesting, and again a repeat for you folks who have seen some of our previous tastings. Last week we did a tasting with some local winemakers, and so I wanted to throw that in with our California tasting to kind of give people some introduction to local wines. Now, local wines kind of get lost in the mix because the quality level for the pricing that they're selling these wines for tends to not be competitive on the global market. But I found a few local winemakers that are really nailing the mark. They've got excellent wines coming out, and the pricing is perfect for the quality that you're getting. This is a straight Cab Franc from La Serenissima Vineyards, which is a local San Diego County vineyard. And you'll see when you taste this, it's pretty much comparable, I think, to a big, bold, oaky Napa Cab Franc. Excellent, excellent wine, and I threw it in here to try and convert some more people. After last week's tasting, I really was impressed and wanted to impart some of that knowledge that I gained about local wines to others. So, La Serenissima Vineyards Cab Franc. Cabernet Franc being one of the original grapes from Bordeaux. Earthy, oaky. Really, really dry. Again, just opened. This could use probably a good 30 minutes of being opened. It's a little bit tight, but in this you can see the quality, that really dark black fruit. You get like a black raspberry, blackberry, and really heavy on the oak. So between the oak and the fact that the grape itself is tannic, you get that really kind of dry. Again, we'll revisit this later once it's been opened, so you can see when it opens up, those notes of blackberry and black raspberry kind of come alive. It is a little bit closed off in this, but I do think the quality in this one is right there for the money, especially being competitive globally. I think that's the hardest thing for local wines, is actually stepping up to the plate, because there's so much wine everywhere growing really well. So what are your thoughts and opinions on it?
Well, I actually thought the Merlot was, let me put it this way. Wine is something, where it's very subjective.
Yes.
However, I like the Merlot better.
Well,
this one seemed a little too astringent to me.
Okay, and
maybe that'll open up later, but right
I
now
think
it's on the astringent side.
Yeah, well, like I said, we'll revisit this and see what you think. And it is also hard to compare any wine to a Nils Van Cake wine. You're talking about cream of the crop here, so anything after that is going to, I think, leave a little lacking. But I do like, especially for a local wine, that this is a fantastic, big, bold Cab Franc. It's exactly what you would expect from the grape.
And this one you would pair with what kinds of foods?
This one much heavier, much richer. Your red meats, beef.
Stew,
Oh, beef stew would be excellent, yeah.
Yeah.
Anything in the heavier department, the big red meats.
Now, I just think it's kind of interesting, and I could be wrong on this, but Merlot and Cab Franc are quite often blending wines.
Yes.
And a lot of times I think they're grown to be innocuous and just add to something, but it's interesting that a lot of winemakers and wine growers are going for what used to be just blending.
Right.
To
standalone varietals.
Sure.
Yeah, and that's, it's an interesting thing based on the market too. I think that if you find that you really are nailing a market with your product, you can stand alone with one varietal. I also think if you get a crop one year that comes in and it's absolutely fantastic and it's all of one varietal, that you don't want to play with it too much, versus another year where it's not necessarily the best crop, so you kind of blend it to make up for the lack of quality. But with these two both standalone, and again, like you said, usually blending grapes, but they're on their own. Ironically, these last three are all from Bordeaux originally, and all three blended in Bordeaux wines. So you do get a lot of standalones, especially coming from California. I think a lot of people like to play with the single varietals. You get all the Rhones that they blend in Rhone grape, in the region of Rhone. You get a lot of those as standalone varietals here, which you don't normally around the rest of the world. So it is very interesting, but I think it's also a very California thing to take it and make it a standalone single varietal, just to show the true expression of the grape.
Well, it's interesting, but do you think economics are involved? I mean, when a grape gets like Pinot Noir, for example, I
Right.
think the grapes are pretty expensive, so maybe people are looking to get the right price.
I think economics always have something to do with it, but I also think depending on the vineyard, because I know these guys have a blend that they do, they have a cab that they do, so I think it was just their idea to say, hey, we have these extra barrels of Cab Franc, they're really great, let's bottle that alone, rather than wait till next year and blend something from another vintage. They just decided to bottle it as well. So I definitely think economics are involved, but I also think it comes down to what they've got left sometimes. When all's said and done and you've made the wines you sat down to make, okay, great, so we use this much of the Cab Franc to blend in all these, let's make a standalone Cab Franc. So I think economics and winemaking all kind of come together under the, what are we putting out at the end of the vintage? All right, so the last one is Sonoma Junction Cab. Now Sonoma being west of Napa, you're closer to the ocean. You get a cooler climate. You also get similar breezes running up from San Francisco off the bay, coming and cooling the vineyards. Now, Cab between the two regions in Napa and in Sonoma are quite different. Cab in Napa is really bold, robust. It's big, and some people think it's a little bit like this one was, tannic and needs to be sat down and aged. Now, you can sit down and age Sonoma wines just as well, but the thing about Sonoma is they tend to have more of an elegance. That cooler climate, that, you know, that the temperatures coming down earlier during the day, they really change the way that the grapes ripen. And so when they do ripen, they are a little bit more subtle in their nuances. They kind of, like I said, the best word I guess would be elegance. They really do kind of exude almost grace versus, you know, in your face, which is what you get from Napa. So, Sonoma Junction Cab. And again, with this one, let me know what you think. And look at that color. Again, just really rich, dark. Yep, oak again, right off the top. Get a little bit of like cinnamon vanilla to it. And that comes from oak again.
It does have a vanilla to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does actually, very much on the taste too, but see how it's
Very
smooth?
smooth.
And it's almost like graceful cab. It's not, you know, you have a lot of those big Napa cabs and they kind of hit you right up front. This is almost like rolling the carpet down for you.
Well, I think this is easier to drink
Yes,
at an earlier age than some of the Napa cabs.
exactly. Much more pop the bottle and go. You don't need to sit them down so much or even decant them.